Minister, on the 11th, Saturday the 11th of March, United Against Racism, along with a whole host of other organisations, trade unions, Palestinian solidarity groups, anti-war groups, women's rights groups, abortion rights groups, LGBT groups, environmental groups, and pretty much anybody who has a progressive bone in their body is going to be marching here in Dublin, appealing to the Taoiseach not to go to Washington. Now, this is not some sort of protest for its own sake. It is, in fact, the scale of mobilisation in the United States and worldwide in response to Trump's agenda, his policies, and the threat that people rightly perceive he represents to vulnerable minorities, to whole categories of people, whether it's Muslims, Mexicans, LGBT people, women, the disabled. You can go through the list. Whole nations who he has put in his firing line. People understand the mortal threat he represents, and they are mobilising across the world on an unprecedented scale. The protests that we're seeing in the United States, nothing has been seen like them since the late 1960s. This is the scale of it. People understand this guy represents an absolutely mortal threat of pulling the entire political spectrum in the direction of the fascist and Nazi politics of the 1930s. And I don't say that lightly. And let's be clear, I don't think Trump is a Nazi, but he is dangerously echoing the politics of the Nazis, and he has people who are openly sympathetic to fascist politics in his cabinet. He has given a fillip of support to actual Nazis and fascists across the world, who were jumping with joy when he was elected because his policies have legitimised their policies. They are all cock-a-hoop about what he's doing, what he represents, and the boost that he has given to them, breathing life back into the politics that led to the Holocaust. That's what he's doing. So we should not underestimate the threat this man represents. This is not just another nasty president, or just another particularly right-wing and obnoxious leader. He is an existential threat to the whole world, and has to be recognised as such. And that is why it is absolutely imperative that we mobilise against him. And I do want to say to some people, because he has pulled off an extraordinary trick in harnessing the absolutely legitimate anger of working people, of many poor people, of disillusioned and disaffected people in the United States, legitimate anger against the betrayals and failures of the Obama administration and the Democrats. He has harnessed that, pretending to be an anti-establishment figure, as if he's going to give a kick in some sort of way that will serve the interests of American working people to the establishment, but he's actually manipulated that to turn it in the most dangerous right-wing direction. And I do think it is important for us to say that, because in opposing Trump, we should in no way, and I say this to people in this House who are opposed to Trump, we should in no way use that to whitewash the crimes of Obama, the betrayals of Obama, to all of those promises. Keeping going Guantanamo Bay, 260,000 bombing raids across the world, bombing in Syria, bombing in Yemen, millions of refugees turned away from the borders of the United States. That's what Obama did. And if we don't recognise the hypocrisy, failures and betrayals of Obama, we will not be able to engage with the angry people in the United States who look to Trump as an alternative. But the point is Trump is not an alternative. He is the establishment. He is the foul, extreme right-wing face of the establishment. And I want to say that to anybody out there who has any illusions in him. His cabinet is the wealthiest cabinet in the history of the world. It's not a cabinet representing the little people. It is a cabinet of the 1%. Wilbur Ross, worth $2.5 billion. Betsy DeVos, worth $1.25 billion. Rex Tillerson, formerly of ExxonMobil, worth $325 million. Steve Mnuchin, Secretary of the Treasury, worth $300 million. Andy Putzer, and formerly of Goldman Sachs, important to say. Andy Putzer, CEO in the fast food industry, who doesn't even support the minimum wage, who's hostile to the minimum wage, is his Secretary of Labour. I haven't even got time to go through the whole lot of them. His entire cabinet's personal wealth, not including Trump's own wealth, is $4.5 billion. More wealth in his cabinet than 63 of the poorest countries in the world have. Incredible. So he is a representative of the 1% who is using the anger that people in America feel, the poor, the unemployed, the disaffected, and turning it in a vicious, racist direction against Muslims, against ethnic minorities, against gay people, against women, and against anything that is progressive. And he must be resisted. And if I could just mention one other group in that regard, today Trump is meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. And already, since Trump's election, Netanyahu, who has smashed through any sort of serious attempt at trying to make peace with the Palestinians, feels he's completely now off the leash to expand, and specifically citing Trump as the reason he could do it, expanding illegal settlements into Palestinian territory. And if Trump moves the US embassy to Jerusalem, it will be like a grenade being thrown in, a grenade thrown into the political process in the Middle East. So I just want to say, in conclusion, Cahirlock, that against this background, against the threat he represents, for us not to go on Patrick's Day would be the sort of protest that would be felt. But if you go, you will be legitimising and endorsing him as some sort of normal president that we can have normal political discussion with. We must resist his political agenda.
Thank you. Deputy Commentary.